Hello and welcome to the Pagan Portal Podcast, produced by Moonbooks Publishing and presented by me, Rachel Patterson. If you prefer an audio-only version, head on over to Spotify. If you are watching on YouTube, please consider hitting the subscribe button. If you'd like early access to all the goodies, also please have a think about becoming a member. So today we welcome the very talented Dave Stone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
If we can start, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a stone carver predominantly. I've carved for about 30 years. Began collecting small pebbles when I was living in Ireland and painting wee designs on them, mainly Celtic designs. At the time, it was, quite intricate stuff, sort of 6th, 7th century style Celtic art. And I've progressed onto bigger rocks, quite elaborate stuff. And at the time, I was just carving with screwdrivers, believe it or not. I was just sharpening them, and I wrecked my hand. And over time, I developed, from street trading to actually getting proper licenses and not having to be chased by the police anymore, and get a bit of legitimacy along the way. But in that time, I learned early on that people want to know the meanings of the designs. And so I started researching way back then. And I changed my approach to the designs. I'd still do some complex Celtic stuff and Norse stuff, but I like the kind of overlooked designs. So I'd go through archaeological manuscripts, specifically just looking at the art for just a shard of pottery with a design that I think, that'll look cool on the stone, and I've built up. I've got sketchbook after sketchbook of my drawings of different designs from archaeological pieces, So it started simple and it spiraled out of control very quickly.
As things do.
Yes.
So is there a spiritual connection to all of that? Do you have a spiritual part?
Yes, I do. It's open, and I wouldn't name it. If anything, I'd say I'm an animist, but I respect, other ideas. I like ideas. For me, it's I could never consolidate myself to some kind of doctrine. I can't make that kind of compromise. I like ideas because I do think like everything's about change. Everything's about even in the mythology, the dragon mythology, you've got, Tiamat, you've got all these dragons that kind of represent chaos. And then this kind of, the wee guy comes along to usher in order, and a lot of it's, ties into sort of patriarchal and matriarchal and feminine, masculine kind of archetypes as well. So I guess I'm open to all that kind of stuff, but I feel with a stone, I just felt a yearning to do something with it, and it's definitely, there's a connection, without a doubt. I can't, wood doesn't work for me. It's just stone, clay. I like clay, it's earthy, but stone draws me in.
I can understand that. I am an animist myself, so I can absolutely understand that draw. And we are going to talk about dragons. I work with dragon magic as well. So
cool. Yeah.
Perfect. I think we all want to put labels on things, don't we? Or put people in boxes. Yeah. And that's not actually how it works.
Totally not. It's the way I see it is there's so much going on, and to limit yourself. It's like reductionism. It's like putting blinkers onto the whole otherness that's happening. And okay, I get that point of view, but it just seems, well, it's reductionism. It's reductionist blinker. It's in the name. It says it all, doesn't it?
I also understand about stone and wood. That makes perfect sense to me. There is something very magical about stones. Characters, personality, energy to it.
Oh, totally. I've been, at the moment I'm traveling around the Greek islands. So I'm in the Cycladic Islands, which is beautiful. And I needed a holiday. I needed a break from carving because it gets ill wrist. It clamps up every now and again. So I have to kind of take a break. And I've been collecting a lot of stone, a bit of stone from here and there, and but on Milos I've been getting a lot of obsidian, and it just feels there's just a feel about it. I don't know what I'll be able to do much because it's so hard. I actually took a bit today and I was trying to hit it with a rock to see if I could break it, and no, it was just bouncing back off. So I was like, oh, okay. Which makes me wonder what they were using to work it in the first place. It's called, sort of in the Neolithic times, But maybe I just need to find the right rock to whack it with.
Something will come. Inspiration will come.
Totally. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Brilliant. I think it's fascinating. I have seen your designs. I've followed you on Instagram in particular for a while. Your designs are amazing.
Thank you. I like trying to keep it all different, but goddesses and dragons are a sort of constant, especially these days, I think, it's definite.
Which leads us to dragons, because you have a new book. Yeah. And it's all about dragons. So why dragons? Where did the dragon interest come from?
I think again from carving. I think to be honest, when I was young, if I was reading fantasy, dragons were always the creatures that I thought, they're cool. From Smog to Actually, I remember as an infant, Puff the Magic Dragon. Do you know?
Oh yes.
So, I mean, there was something about the rhyme, and I loved it as a kid, but then when I've been carving over the years, I think just noticing the amount of dragon and serpent designs, because the two are kind of entwined, but these kind of monstrous serpents, not just wee snakes, but the profusion of those designs in the art really got me. I was like, what's that about? And then it's just my interest in dragons has developed since then. The kickstart for the book, or the spark that ignited the book, was a journey I was actually doing about 13 years ago. And there was just some imagery that I'd seen in Greece again, and in Turkey, sort of dragon imagery. And and then started reading some of the myths of, Greece and Turkey. And it just, there's a pattern, which is kind of what the book's about, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Dragons have been with me since a child as well. So yeah.
Sound like, yeah. I think it's just that they've
it's
got
there,
a resonance.
Isn't it? Once it's there.
Totally.
It's there.
Totally.
Yeah. Brilliant. So what do you think is the origin of dragon? Myths and stories, but every culture seems to have a story about dragons, doesn't it, in some form?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have a personal idea on the origins of dragon?
Oh, I think like in the book, what I try and do is I pick up threads. There's these certain threads, and I do think they're kind of the core, like structures, pagan structures, if you like. Do you know, like they're these sort of, because it's so prevalent, because it's everywhere. But I think there's similar and different motifs, like why it's everywhere. And I examine possibilities in the book, one being diffusion, like the idea of this idea starting in a particular place and working out the way. There's that idea. Personally, I'm not sold on that. I think there's something else going on because it's everywhere. Do either that, it's really, really, really old. But then the designs, the mythology, as kind of detailed in the books, like the Mexican myth of Quetzalcoatl. I'm probably destroying the pronunciation of that, but like it's so similar to a lot of the dragon mythology, from Mesopotamia to China. There's these very strong patterns. So personally, I think it's got animist roots. It's it's like a personification of not just natural forces, but the what people saw in the land itself. But there are some dragons that were, a tyrant maybe was called a dragon, and do you know what I mean? And then some of the myths revolve around that as well, because there's a strong link with dragons being associated with war and warriors and stuff like that as well. So I mean, when you look at sort of like Ahi Dahaka, which is it's Armenian. It's a bit, well, actually, it's throughout that Armenia spreads right through to India. In slightly different names, but there's this. The dragon law there is incredible. You sort of see he's buried under a mountain eventually, like other dragons are as well. But he seems to be. He's almost like he could have been a real person, a sort of someone who didn't quite fit the bill, either a tyrant or he could have been an animist, because there's a lot of Zoroastrianism. When that came in, it seems to have hated the earlier beliefs and it stamped them out, much like Christianity kind of had a beef with paganism. So I think there's been these religious schisms, and dragons have been the sort of victim of that, because hence that's why they've become these terrifying monsters. But when you look into it, as I do in the book, it's so obvious that it's reflecting this feminine side of nature. That a lot of dragons are buffed by the Earth Goddess, or the Earth Mother. There's Python, in the Greek mythology, who's this giant serpent that's slain by Apollo. If you read that myth, which again is in the book, but the details of it, it's so obvious it's a religious takeover. It's, but whether that's like a more, anthropomorphic gods suppressing earthier animist beliefs is open to interpretation, I guess. Yeah.
I think they have been portrayed as the bad guys, really, haven't they?
Yeah.
Most stories and the myths seem to be putting dragons in as the bad guys.
That's it. But at the same time, if you look at the way they've been incorporated into like armor or protective motifs on windows, you get these in the Middle East. There's dragon motifs that sort of rise up around windows and entwine at the top, almost not like, and if for protection. It's not just decoration. The idea is the dragon's there to kind of ward off evil. So like it's like a lot of pagan ideas. These main religions come along and they say you can't believe in that anymore, but it survives because at the base, the people on the land seem to recognize, no, actually, we still want the dragon's guard in the window. We still want to, on May Day go up the hill, or we want to worship at the well. Despite we might have to change the name, but there seems to be that as well. That there's. It's maybe just in the texts and the stories that were coded where the dragons are demonized,
Yeah, dragons are bad guys. We do need to turn that around.
Oh, I think totally. Yeah. And I think they're so linked to environmental ideas, like they could be a sort of a symbol for environmentalism, because at the end of the day, they're linked with, in the book, I categorize different threads, but one of the major threads is their association with water. There's dragons of lochs, there's dragons, serpents of wells, across, everywhere, right across Europe and China, it's really kind of linked with water as well. So, water's so vital for life. Without it, everything's gone, So it's if that is a sort of a symbol that that's associated with the dragon so strongly. I just think the dragon is the perfect vehicle for an environmental motif.
Yeah,
You know,
it works for me.
yeah, totally. Like, and like I know it's got an association with war and battle as well. Do you know, and that's fair enough. Do you know, but I think it should be, its good side should be foisted. You know, and raised. You know, like, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because they do have a strong connection to the land, don't they? As
Yeah,
you mentioned before, hills and mounds quite often have a
totally.
living in them, curled
Yeah,
round them.
that's
But
right. Yeah, totally. They are. I mean, to me, they're the animus force supreme. Do you know there's a water, there's a land, there's obviously the fire element as well, air too. I mean, they all encompass all. And also in the Greek, like the serpent motif, it ties into pneuma, spirit, soul. Like there's so much. In the serpent worship, virtually every house had its household serpent in many places in Europe, and still does. Like, I met someone telling me in Lithuania they still honor like the household serpent. Which is amazing. And a lot of places until fairly recently did that. So you've got your physical little household serpent, but there's a spiritual association with it as well. It's like a reflection of these larger serpent dragon kind of ideas and myths and legends.
I'm up for bringing dragons to the forefront. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Love the environmental aspect, though. I hadn't really thought about that side of it. Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Dragons for the environment. Love
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And they are very popular at the minute, aren't they? There's obviously Puff the Magic Dragon and Smaug from our childhoods. They are really popular now in TV and films, aren't they? Do you think there's a reason they're claiming the limelight now?
Uh, I don't know. I do think that they've always been popular. I think that social media, probably is a big proponent of why things gather popularity. But there's just something about the dragon that maybe it speaks to a wildness in us. Like a deep longing to kind of return in a way back to these ideas that maybe people can't vocalize, maybe people aren't aware of. Hopefully books like mine had helped. You know what I mean, to make people aware that there's so much more behind the dragon than just this fire breathing monster. It's which is cool. I mean, I enjoyed Game of Thrones. I loved it. I think they're amazing. What they did with the dragons, and incredible. And I think that's great as well, because it pushes this kind of popularity of something that maybe shouldn't be popular in a way. If we were to take the stories verbatim, oh, the dragon's the bad guy, but we love them. We do. We want to see dragons battling in the sky. And who wouldn't?
Yeah, it's a kind of double-edged thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. I must admit, I think dragons are maybe different things for different people too. Like the Chinese, you have the dragon. I mean, it's a lot to do with water and air, and those elements. But it's also the symbol of China, and it was a symbol of the emperor in the past as well. He had a dragon gown, and some stories reflect some emperors being born by a dragon pool, and this kind of thing. So it's really deep in it. Again, water's in there, but then it's also in some of the Irish myths, where Finn McCool goes around Ireland battling all these monsters. Most of them are in lochs, so bodies of water. So there's something to that, as well. So, yeah.
Now, you've mentioned a few of the myths and stories. There are so many of them across the globe, which it still amazes me that there's such a huge coverage. Do you think there is something that we can gain from those ancient legends and myths today?
Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah. I think an awareness of where they come from, an awareness that there's more than just a picture book and a fantasy version, which are cool as well, but there's a deeper resonance historically, mythologically, that go way, way back. And some of the earlier stories we have are the dragon myth, whether it be Tiamat and Marduk, which is a story codified, written down, but I mean, it was obviously much older than that. And I think the more we look into these kind of things, the more potent they become, because at the end of the day, yeah, and as we've touched on before, like the whole idea of animism, I think is kind of vital. And because if we understand what animism is, if we understand that, everything has meaning, everything has something, it has an energy, it has a force, maybe then we appreciate things more and don't, and quit muddying the waters, so to speak, So yeah, and the whole environmental kind of side, I think is important, for to make people aware of that.
It's connection, isn't it?
Connection, yeah,
To the energy of it.
definitely, yeah.
Have you got a favourite dragon story? Because obviously you've travelled a lot, obviously, and you've researched a lot of stories. Is there one particular favourite dragon story you have?
Yeah, do you know it's definitely, and it's more a giant serpent dragon than a dragon, but it's the python. It's Apollo and Python is just perhaps because I've been to Delphi, and every time I go to Delphi, I feel a kind of there's just something about the place. Partly because it's like you think, well, there's this resonant energy of all these people who went there to seek the Pythia, to get the oracle. But also, there's, you've got your Omphalos, the center of the world, which is supposed to be the spot where the python was slain as well. And to me, it just seems to reinforce this idea that these beliefs were much older than Apollo and the pantheon of Olympic deities. I think they kind of were like, oh no, we're claiming this spot, and that's why Apollo, looses his arrow and slays Python, but still keeps the Pythia, and the Pythia's female. And if you look into the myth, he kills a couple of other priestesses in that area who are associated with wells, and maybe the same character, but they seem to be Dracanae, which is the maybe priestesses or goddesses, but they're associated with serpents as well, or dragon serpents. But I just find that whole area fascinating. And I've been to the cave. You can walk up the mountain to the Carichian cave, where people still leave offerings actually, but it's amazing when you follow this winding path and you get to this little mountain, and you follow another winding path that's just single through, like a sheep track through the brush, and there's a little triangular entrance, and you look in, and it's a big slope down into the cavern. And there's these three stalagmites, the ones that aren't hanging down, the ones rising. There's three of them huddled like, the three goddesses. Just, it's incredible. They're just like massive, but you can see why it was this draw. There's a presence there and an energy in the cave. So and the serpent line, and the possibility is that the original python was resident in the cave. So the original site of Delphi was probably there, and then moved down to its site where the Castilian Spring is nearby as well. So maybe it was like meant to be between them or something. But yeah, so that's my favorite. But there's many more. There's so many myths. I could, yeah. There's so many.
I think as well, visiting those places,
Yeah.
it again, it's connection. It gives you that connection to it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's, I would have liked to actually, this trip, I was contemplating going back up, but I've got an idea for another trip because I want to go to Kefalonia. I saw on the map they've got a dragon cave there, which ties in with a load of research I've been doing on other things. The whole priestess on islands. They're like this kind of another reoccurring myth is these priestesses who dwell on islands, and it's everywhere as well. Whether it be Greek myth or Celtic myth, it's all over the place. In fact, there's Norse mythology from the Baltic involving dragon priestesses who worship dragons. Do you know on Gotland, but also another? I think it's called Estland. It's an island in the Baltic. So there's a link. So I thought, oh, I've got to do that. I've got to go to. There's a cave with a dragon name attached. I'm there. I want to go. So yeah. So that's my next trip. Whenever that
sounds
will be.
like a plan. Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So now you mentioned serpents within the chat today, and they're often kind of pulled together, aren't they? Dragons and serpents. Do you think they are separate things, or should they be linked all under that same kind of umbrella?
Yes and no. How's that for an answer? To a certain degree, yes. And then some, like in the book, I wanted to tie in the serpent lore. I think it's important, and I think it's to the dragon mythology. And it's not to say every serpent story means, oh, it's a dragon, and not at all. But there's interest in crossovers, and then of course there's your original worm is it's a big the Lamberton worm. It's a big giant worm. It's not the medieval dragon with the wings, and the dragon we kind of recognize today is a bit of a later adaptation. Although there's the famous figure on the Gunderstruck cauldron who's holding two winged dragons. Which is, well, they date it to around 100 BC. So, there's obviously winged forms of dragons back then too. So, and the Chinese dragons are often winged and have various bits and pieces and are quite kind of hybrid, But yeah, no, there's the dragons are cool. Sorry, I lost the plot again. Do you know what it is? It's the sun.
Depends on the type of serpent, then.
Yeah, it's the sun. It's affected my brain. I've had too much sun and wine and ouzo. Not right now.
It's rain. Well, we've got the rain in here, so.
Oh yeah. I'll have to acclimatize. No, but I think the snake and the serpent, like the python. I mean, it's a giant serpent. And a lot, but then in a similar myth is Zeus chasing Typhon, which is a kind of a hybrid kind of dragony monster as well. And myth is very almost like an echo of what his son does, as well. So again, these kind of patterns. The man destroys the female serpent. Usually this seems to be the way, and you can read into that what, like a lesson in a book. Yeah, but there is definitely, I mean, I know Maria Gimbutas, who wrote Gods and Goddesses of Old Europe, which was a book that I looked into many years ago when I was trying to find the meanings of designs, and I read quite a lot of her work. And I know some scholars say, she was too feminist, and she had this idea that a lot of the mythology proves that there was a patriarchal uprising and they quashed the matriarchy that was, and people dispute that. But in researching the book, I must admit, I began to kind of think, well, I think she's right, because it just seems like a lot of goddess quashing going on, from Tiamat, especially the whole Marduk and Tiamat, the old Sumerian myth, where she is female, and then the sky god comes down and basically cuts her in half and creates the sky and the earth. But again, it's a pattern that's very often kind of mixed. But then another thread of the serpent myth that I trace is like the caduceus and those kind of motifs where there's a masculine, a feminine becoming a third. The sort of, I call it the third principle. Because so much paganism has this, the threes, the triples, the triads, and I think the caduceus is an important symbol. And it does tie into the whole dragon mythology as well, the masculine, the feminine. So many motifs of dragons fighting, and again masculine, feminine, but coming together, not destroying each other, coming together, and that's the origin of the yin yang symbol as well. So. Which again, it's heavy in the Eastern tradition too.
Yeah, and it is like you say. There's patterns. It repeats across the globe, doesn't it? There are so many threads that are the same.
Yeah, and whether that's because these things are archetypes from within or they exist outside of us. I leave it open to to the reader. I don't say, "Oh, this is the way." And what I try to do in the book is give possibilities and let the reader decide and make up their own mind and then investigate further. I don't think it's my job to say, "Oh, it's because of this." I'm not a preacher, At least I hope not.
Now, I can't mention dragons without talking about the dragon slayers, because a lot of stories involve perhaps the more modern ones involve dragon slayers. You think they were representative of something specific?
Yeah, definitely. I think they're it's that kind of a very machismo kind of urge, but also, as I mentioned in the book, I think the dragon slayer was probably quite a lonely character. The kind of often facing these monsters alone, seeking them alone, and then destroying them. Again, it's Apollo versus Python. It's the sky god versus Tiamat. It's the same thing. It's in fact, Marduk's maybe your original dragon slayer. Yeah. So yeah, it's I think it represents this urge to control something, whether it be the forces of nature, whether it be the matriarch. They just didn't. Whether it was patriarchal versus matriarchal, or just some kind of machismo guy thing. Who knows? Again, I'll leave that. That's for people to decide. The evidence I've kind of documented in the book, and let folks decide.
It's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, it's always a lone dragon slayer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is, in the scale of things, you've got a huge dragon. You're not really going to send one bloke out.
No, totally. No, definitely not. No. It's funny. It's like St. George, is the classic one. Or Georgios, Holios, from Turkey, and how it was transferred, to the UK, but you see, like over here in Greece, there's always a chapel dedicated to that saint, and he's killing the dragon, and again, it just slots into that kind of patriarchal Christian mindset so well, It just seems to be another piece of evidence, and to suggest that that's what it is.
You'd send an army, wouldn't you? You wouldn't send one bloke on his own.
No, totally. No. That's it. Definitely. Yeah. I get it with the original the original Tiamat motif is Marduk he's armed by the gods, and he's a demigod, or I think he's a demigod or a god himself. And the other gods have been running away, and he's the only one who can face, the dragon. And she has an army, Tiamat has an army, but he seems to be he's got powers. You know, he wasn't just a wee knight on a horse with a lance.
So I've read a lot of dragon tales. I read a lot of stories and myths. And what I have found, and I don't know if you found the same, most of the stories involve fully grown dragons. I didn't or haven't come across many stories that involve infant dragons
Yeah.
or eggs. Is that something that you found?
I found there is a couple in the book. I'm sure that they start young and they grow, especially the Slavic stories. There's the one, and I've forgotten it's maybe the Dragon of the Mirror Mountain or the Glass Mountain. It's and it starts small and then grows big and becomes this kind of huge monster. Basically, it grows big because it's eating everybody. So it's got it's got a ready diet and it grows. But yeah, not it's in some myths. There's women would sleep with a dragon or be impregnated by dragons, and the progeny would be dragon lords.
Logistical problem with that we're not.
But then it's obviously metaphorical, but then the children would be said to be blessed with these powers, and they'd have little wings and stuff, and
Okay.
again that's a lot in Slavic and Hungarian kind of mythology.
Okay.
So there is a side, and there's a whole side where that there's this kind of union between a dragon and a female. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just one of the things I found quite interesting.
No, totally. But apart from the fantasy books, I've not come across many others. Like where these. But then, in saying that, when you think that a lot of dragon monsters were buffed by the Earth goddess, or Gaia creates various kind of sort of chaotic monstrous offspring. So I suppose they must have been babies at one point. I like to think of them as babies at one point. Yeah, kind of cute wee things,
Now we've mentioned consistent themes across the globe and all the stories.
Yeah.
About what a dragon eats. Now, in a lot of the stories, they seem to be fed sheep, but also milk, which I find quite strange.
Yeah. There is a myth where, if I remember rightly, the dragon lives on an island with a tree, and again, another pattern that appears: island and tree, sometimes priestesses and a serpent, but it's in a lake of milk, which is interesting. But yeah, humans and sheep seem to be a steady diet in a lot of the stories.
Well, yeah, obviously the sacrificial virgins come into it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, there's I think it's I don't know. I'd say in the stories where they've been demonized, that's a way of making the dragon appear more monstrous. Is if it's eating your livestock and eating people, it's a way of saying, that it's a really bad thing, But in like the Chinese myths, they don't often tackle people. They're usually very benevolent and very seems to bring fortune and luck. In contrast to the sort of Christian countries, so to speak, where I think the dragon also becomes a symbol of paganism. So you've got these pictures of the archetype St. George trampling the dragon, but you could see the dragon as a symbol of paganism. Then little monks trampling on serpents, on British crosses. Again, it's paganism, So the serpent, in a way, is representing paganism, animism, the old beliefs and the old ways. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the Chinese culture do seem to revere them, don't they?
Yeah.
It's good fortune and prosperity, and their dragons are beautiful.
Oh yeah, no, totally. There's and they each have, there's certain animals that they consist of. There's certain numbers of joints. There's certain parts of them. That they're quite specific in the way they're created and portrayed. But then if you look at the different cultures, something even 2000 BC, there's some of the imagery of the dragons, they're beautiful, just incredible. And then the earliest,
I think they're beautiful creatures. So,
yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. If I hadn't, I would never have written the book. I don't think if I didn't have the affinity. Yeah.
So, what does dragon mean to you personally?
A sense of the wild, and a sense of freedom, and the whole link with water and the environment. I just feel now when I'm wandering lochs and rivers, or even just the shapes in the land, that there's a sense that there's a presence there, whether it be flow of energy or whatever. I've come to kind of visualize it as serpents, as dragons, those kind of things. I often see, the way the eye makes patterns, but in clouds, and it just feels kind of so right, because it fits into so much of the mythology. And you have this sort of dark underbelly gliding over a hill. It's like it's like the belly of a dragon, so I get into all that, yeah.
So to finish up, any new projects you're working on?
Quite a few. I've got one that's a graphic novel. It's been a wee while in the making. It's getting basically, because the technique I'm using is quite painstaking little strokes, and it does my hand no end of good. It's just like, okay. So that's been like a panel every now and again. It'll get there. I'd like to finish that this winter. And it's about a wee guy who goes traveling about, and it's about conversations with people, about ideas, about people just wondering what the world's all about, and kind of part philosophy, part madness, part just, ideas on belief and stuff like that as well, but a heartening book. I want it to be kind of uplifting as well. And it also explores a kind of, not a Gnostic theme, but that kind of idea, some of the Gnostic ideas as well. And I'm writing a sci-fi as well, because I'm very anti-AI, and the book is about AI. So it's my cut at that, and I love sci-fi. So yeah. So that's in the bag at the moment. But there'll be more to come. There's always something on the horizon. Yeah. And then a bunch of rocks. I need to carve rocks constantly. So yeah.
I actually think that dragon energy provides inspiration and creativity. I think it's what drives me. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no, someone's
Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes so much sense. Yeah, no. And definitely there's a motivating force behind the whole idea of them. I think so, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to champion dragons. Definitely.
Yes, definitely. I'll be carving plenty of dragon rocks when I get back. That's for sure. Yeah.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you so much. So
no problem.
Dragon Fantasy.
Yeah.
Even if you have a passing interest in dragons, fascinating book. So get out there, people, and buy it. Definitely. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
No problem.
Enjoy the rest of your travels.
Yes.
I hope you get a lot of stones back in your suitcase.
Yeah, I've got a small mountain. Small mountain to bring back, but it'll be fine.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for watching and listening, and we will catch you again next time on the Pagan Portal Podcast.
You have been listening to the Pagan Portal Podcast, a Moonbooks Publishing production. For more information, please visit our website.